Eleanor Voss had 3 things in her shop on the morning of the Countess's ball: a needle, a problem, and no time. The problem was the beadwork. 200 tiny seed pearls stitched along the bodice of the Countess Whitmore's evening gown had pulled loose at the left seam, not many. Enough. The Countess's lady's maid had brought the gown in at 9 in the morning, with the expression of someone delivering terrible news. Eleanor had taken one look at the damage, nodded once, and told the woman to come back at 4. She worked by the window where the light was best. Her fingers moved the way they always did when the work was fine, carefully, without hurry, because hurrying fine work was how you ruined it. Thread thinner than a whisper, needle smaller than a pin, pearl by pearl, she closed the seam back up. By 3 o'clock the gown was done. By 4 it was pressed and wrapped. By 4:30 Eleanor had eaten a piece of bread standing at her work table, written 3 orders in her ledger, and realized the lady's maid had left the Countess's matching gloves on the shelf by the door. She should have sent a boy. She knew that. But the only boy she trusted with deliveries had gone home sick that morning, and the gloves were small, and Ashcroft House was 20 minutes away, and she was already putting on her coat. She did not think about what kind of evening it was at Ashcroft House. She was thinking about thread. She needed to order more before Thursday, or she would run short on Mrs. Alderton's commission, and Mrs. Alderton was the kind of woman who noticed shortages. She arrived at Ashcroft House through the servants' entrance at 11:30. The housekeeper, Mrs. Hargrove, was not where Eleanor expected her to be. A footman pointed her down one corridor. She followed it, turned left where she should have turned right, and opened a door. The grand hall opened in front of her like something from a story. 200 candles in a chandelier above her head. An orchestra at the far end playing a Strauss waltz. 200 people in silk and jewels moving across white marble. The light was extraordinary, the kind of light that made everything look slightly unreal, as if the whole room had been polished. Eleanor stood very still in the doorway. She was wearing her dove-gray dress, the one she had reshaped twice, and did not yet need to reshape a 3rd time. She had pins in her hair from working that afternoon. She was holding a paper-wrapped parcel that contained a pair of ivory gloves. She was not dressed for this room. She was not supposed to be in this room. The room knew it, and she knew it, and she began backing toward the door with the quiet efficiency of a woman who had navigated difficult situations before and preferred to do so without drama. Her heel caught the marble. The small sound it made was nothing, barely audible under the orchestra, but she stopped moving, and in stopping, she looked up, and across the length of the hall, a man standing alone near the east arch turned his head. She looked at him for exactly 1 second. He looked at her for the same second. She found the door handle behind her and left. Edmund Calloway, the 7th Duke of Calloway, had been standing near the east arch for 40 minutes because it was the position in the room that made him hardest to approach. He was 31 years old. He had attended 4 balls this season and refused 11 offers to dance, which his mother described as wasteful and his grandmother described as sensible. He was not cold. People often thought he was cold because he was quiet, and they confused the 2 things. He was, in fact, simply very tired of being in rooms where everyone wanted something from him before they knew anything about him. Lady Haverstock had wanted a title. The Pemberton twins had wanted, he suspected, mostly to be the one who succeeded where the other had failed. Miss Arabella Finch had wanted him in the abstract way people want beautiful objects, not because she had any particular feeling for him, but because he was the sort of thing one was supposed to want. He had smiled at all of them. He had said the right words to all of them. He had refused all of them with care and efficiency, and now he was standing by the east arch counting the minutes. Then he heard a small sound near the hall's main door. A woman in a gray dress was backing toward it. She was not like anyone else in the room, not because of the dress, but because of her expression. Every other woman who had entered this hall that evening had done so with the particular confidence of someone arriving in a room they believed they belonged to. This woman had opened the wrong door and knew it immediately, and there was something in the way she moved, that rapid, practical retreat, no fuss, no performance, that made him cross the room before he had entirely decided to. He reached the door 2 seconds after she closed it. He opened it and stepped into the corridor. She was 10 feet away and walking at a pace that was not quite running. "Excuse me," he said. She stopped, turned, looked at him. "Are you lost?" he said. She considered him for a moment. "I am looking for Mrs. Hargrove, the housekeeper." Yes. He didn't know where Mrs. Hargrove was. He told her so honestly. She thanked him and said she would find someone else to ask. She was already turning away when he said, "The orchestra is playing a Strauss piece. You might like it." She looked at him. It was a direct look, without any of the performance he had been receiving all evening. She was measuring him the way, he would later understand, she measured fabric, for what it actually was, rather than what it was supposed to be. "I am a seamstress," she said. She said it between them like a fact. "Here is what I am. Here is what I am not." "I know," he said. "You have pins in your hair." She reached up and touched her hair, and something shifted in her expression, not embarrassment exactly, more like a person recalculating. "The Countess's maid left her gloves at my shop," she said. "That is why I am here." He nodded. "Then you did something useful this evening, more than most people in that room." She looked at him again, longer this time. "I should find Mrs. Hargrove," she said. "Yes," he said. He did not move. "Would you like to dance first?" She said no, immediately and without softening it, the no of a woman who understood consequences and had no interest in pretending otherwise. "I understand," he said, and then he said the thing that would matter later, the thing she would think about on the walk home, and again in the morning, and again 3 weeks after that, when she understood it fully. "I asked because I wanted to, not because I expected you to say yes." She looked at him for a long moment. "One dance," she said. His grandmother, the Dowager Duchess of Callaway, had been sitting against the east wall for 2 hours, watching her grandson refuse every eligible woman in London. She had not said anything about this. She rarely said anything directly when she could observe instead. She was the first person in the room to notice Edmund walk back through the main doors with a young woman in a gray dress. She set her claret glass down. The young woman moved the way people moved when they were competent, without waste. She was not beautiful in the way the room expected beauty. She was something more specific than that. She had the kind of face that became more interesting the longer you looked at it. Edmund was talking to her, not performing conversation, talking. The Dowager watched them cross the floor to where the dancing was. She watched Edmund take the young woman's hand with the careful attention of a man handling something he did not want to damage. The Countess Whitmore, across the room, spotted the young woman and went briefly rigid. Then she saw Edmund. Then her expression changed into something more complicated. The mothers along the wall stopped talking. None of this concerned the Dowager. She picked up her claret glass again and continued watching her grandson, who was for the first time all evening looking at someone without also looking for a way to leave the room. Eleanor did not know what to do with a duke who asked genuine questions. He asked her name, she gave it. He asked about the beadwork on the gown she had repaired, not vaguely, specifically. What thread weight had she used? How had she matched the original stitch tension? How long had the repair taken? She answered. She could not help it. The work was genuinely interesting, and he was genuinely asking. 4 days, she said. The beads were old stock, which meant I had to source matching ones from 3 different suppliers. The original thread was finer than anything commonly available now, so I had to work with the closest approximation and adjust the tension by hand. By hand, he said. You cannot mechanize that kind of judgment. No, he said. I imagine not. The waltz turned, and they turned with it. She was aware of the room watching them. She had been aware of it from the moment they stepped onto the floor, and she had made a decision very quickly. She could either be uncomfortable about being watched, or she could be present in the dance, and the dance was more interesting. You asked 11 women to dance tonight, she said. He looked at her. Where did you hear that? Corridors carry sound, she said. The footman outside the east passage has been counting. A pause. Then something happened to his expression. A slight shift, as if he had been holding something in place and briefly stopped. I didn't ask them, he said. They asked me. And you refused? Yes. And then you followed a seamstress into the corridor and asked her. Yes. She considered this. Why? He was quiet for a moment, not thinking about what to say. She could tell the difference by now, but deciding how honestly to say it. "You were leaving," he said. "Without wanting anything from the room, I have been in this room for 2 hours, and you were the first person I saw who simply wanted to leave it." She understood that. She understood it more than he probably expected her to. "I have a thread order to think about," she said. "Before Thursday." "What kind of thread?" she told him. He listened. She left after the dance. She found Mrs. Hargrove in the kitchen passage, delivered the gloves, and walked home through November fog with her coat pulled close. She thought about him on the way home. She did not want to, but she was an honest person, and it seemed dishonest to pretend she was thinking about the thread order when she was thinking about gray eyes and a question asked without expectation. She thought about him the next morning while she opened the shop. She put him away in a practical part of her mind, the part that held things that were interesting but not relevant, and went back to Mrs. Alderton's commission. 3 weeks passed. On a Tuesday morning, the shop door opened, and Edmund Calloway walked in with a jacket over his arm. Eleanor looked at the jacket. She looked at him. She looked at the jacket again. The seams were in perfect condition. "What is wrong with it?" she asked. "Nothing," he said. She waited. "I wanted to see the shop," he said. And then, because he was apparently the kind of man who found honesty easier than strategy, "I wanted to see you." She put the jacket on the counter. She examined the seams with a care that was not entirely necessary. She was buying herself a moment to think clearly. He was a duke, she was a seamstress. The distance between those two things was not just social, it was practical, legal, structural. She had no family money, no connections, no protection. If she allowed herself to be charmed by a man she could not keep, the cost would fall on her, not on him. It always did. She set the jacket down. "I am not a project," she said. "No," he said. "You are someone I find interesting. There is a difference." "There may not be a difference in practice." "What would make a difference in practice?" he asked. She looked at him. "Honesty. Specifically honesty about what this is and what it cannot be." He nodded. "Then let me be honest. I do not know what this is. I know I have thought about a thread order more times in the last 3 weeks than is reasonable. I know I would like to have a proper conversation without a Strauss waltz underneath it." He paused. "That is what I know. I am not asking for more than that today." She studied him the way she studied a new commission, looking for where the difficulty would be, where the material might not hold, where the work would ask more than it appeared to. "Tea," she said finally. "There is a shop 2 streets over. 1 hour." He said, "Yes." They met 7 more times over the following 4 weeks. In the tea shop, in a small bookshop on Faro Street, where she needed to collect a pattern book, and he came along, in a park, where they walked for an hour in cold air, and the conversation did not stop. He met her twice at the shop when she was working, and sat on a stool by the window, and talked to her while she sewed, which was the most natural thing anyone had ever done in her presence. Most people who came to the shop were uncomfortable with the work. He watched it with the attention of someone who was actually interested, which she found, despite herself, difficult to protect against. She said no the first time he suggested they might continue seeing each other, beyond what was casual. She said no the second time too. Both times she gave him clear reasons, and both times he took those reasons seriously and did not argue with them, which she had not expected, and which stayed with her afterward in a way she did not entirely know what to do with. The third time he asked, she said yes. Not because the distance between their lives had changed, not because the difficulties had resolved themselves, but because she had measured him carefully over 8 weeks, and found him to be exactly what he appeared to be, and in her experience, that was rare enough to be worth something. They married in April of 1888, small ceremony, morning light through the church windows. She wore a dress she had made herself, ivory silk, cut simply, no decoration except the quality of the fabric and the precision of the seams. His grandmother sat in the first row. She had said, when Edmund asked her opinion, "She knows what everything is worth. That is not a common skill." Then she had asked for another cup of tea and changed the subject. The society papers wrote several things, most of them wrong. Eleanor Voss continued to run her shop. The Duchess of Calloway, it turned out, had an excellent head for business, and a reputation for work that could not be matched in London at any price. She kept the pins. She kept the ledger. She kept the shop on Faro Street, where the light by the window was still the best in the building, and where a needle and good thread and enough patience could fix almost anything. She had known that long before she met him. He was, she decided, simply the finest work she had ever done.